Welcome to Detroit. Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and three toes. I will beat your ass. You can drown them. And that's what we gotta be. That's who we have to be. Because that's our domain. That is our domain. Because we'll tread water as long as it takes to fucking bury you.
Takes the snap, turns, gives to Montgomery, right side, end zone, touchdown, Detroit Lions! Yes.
We are driven by Detroit.
Hello, Detroit Lions friends, fans, and family members. Welcome on back to yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike. And as always, we're diving on in. So folks, as we all know, the offseason, not exactly a great time in which there's a whole bunch of worthwhile news. I mean, most news, it's very sparse, very sporadic, it's very spread out. And on top of that, any tangible action is also limited as well, because the offseason is not really a time when a whole lot of things that are newsworthy are going to be happening. That typically doesn't happen until once we start getting into OTAs, mini camp, training camp, and then once we actually have gotten to the season. But, again, something happened yesterday that the Lions were able to seize upon a option, if you will, that would ensure their future plan for Super Bowl success is further secured. The offseason is a time in which proper planning, careful decisions, all these things, they have to be weighed with the greatest amount of weight and consideration. Because how you plan, how you prepare before the season starts is going to have a significant amount of impact on a team's upcoming and fast approaching season. Now, some people might have liked what the Lions have done so far this offseason. Some maybe not as much. But so far, the Lions have been, in my opinion, deliberate and wise in many, I would not say all, but in many of these decisions. But they recently made one that, while of little consequence it would seem to some, I believe firmly that this decision that they made will have a profound impact in the Lions' purposeful designs for wanting to win a Super Bowl this year. What exactly am I referring to? Yesterday it was announced that the Lions would be doing their joint training camp practices this year with the Miami Dolphins, rather than as we have the last 2 years been doing it with the New York Giants. Now, I know this. There's probably going to be some that are going to be like, well, why is this even good news? Or why is this news that would be considered even worthwhile? Well, as I always do, I will tell you why in 3 main reasons. Let's take a look at the first reason as to why I believe that this is exactly just what the Lions need, and why this is a brilliant, genius decision on the Lions' part. Reason number 1. The Dolphins' offense is going to be one that is going to push the Lions' defense. Let's think about this, folks, and it's not something you have to really seriously think a whole hell of a lot on, but unlike the Giants' mundane, if not anemic offense of the past 2 seasons, the Dolphins is the exact opposite. Plus, on top of that, let's just put this into further consideration. The Giants are breaking in 2 new quarterbacks to their team. They're breaking in Russell Wilson, who's learning the offense under Brian Daboll. And on top of that, they've also got Dart, the guy they just drafted in the first round this year. So they're going to have to work out some kinks with their offense. Their offense is not going to be able to give us the best look that they possibly can give. The Dolphins, on the other hand, have no such concerns. Tua has been there for a number of years. Their head coach, Mike McDaniel, has been there. Their offense is in place. It's ready to rock and roll. And as I just kind of alluded to, the offense of the Dolphins, it's filled with explosive playmakers that will push this Lions defense to the absolute max. Very, very stark contrast, very great contrary in terms of what the Giants would be able to do. And what that's going to do is it's going to provide great practice and preparation for other explosive offenses in the NFL, quite a number of which we're going to be facing this year. Now, some will say that I'm wrong about the Dolphins' offense because, well, the offense didn't do particularly well in 2024. But let's be fair and let's call a spade here. That was due to the fact that Tua, as I have stated ever since he was in the draft a couple of years ago, he's a China doll. He doesn't typically stay healthy for very long. I think in totality, he's only been able to play one full season his entire career. And having those injuries that he had last year, again, it was a reflection on the fact that they didn't have their starting quarterback as to why their offense didn't do particularly well, rather than the true offensive prowess that the Dolphins have. Because let's consider some facts here. If you take a look at how Tua did in 2023 with the Dolphins, he was ranked 4th in completion percentage, number 1 in passing yards, 2nd in pass average per throw, tied 5th in passing touchdowns, ranked 7th in passing touchdown percentage. He was then also ranked 5th in passer rating, and he was ranked 10th in QBR. To try and say that Tua is not at least a good quarterback, albeit when he's healthy, would be a gross misrepresentation of the facts. Because the statistics show that, hey, when he's healthy, he can be a pretty damn good quarterback. But it's not just Tua. Tua also has 2 very damn good, freaking receivers to throw to. One of which is called the Cheetah. That being Tyreek Hill. If you take a look at Tyreek Hill's statistics from 2023 and 2024 with the Dolphins, again, you're going to get a very similar picture. Has the 4th most receptions out of a receiver in that time frame. 6th most targets. He also has the 4th most receiving yards, tied 9th in terms of receiving average per catch, and also 4th most receiving touchdowns. Plus, on top of that, he has a great amount of, touchdown percentage per reception, first down percentage per reception, first downs, the whole 9 yards. So, and let's just call it for what it is. Tyreek is still a speed demon. So having the ability to have him to go up against for our defense, that's going to be a double whammy for our defense because, oh, that's right, we have our own version of the Cheetah in Jameson Williams. So that's going to be something that's really going to help out our defense because it's going to be like, hey, if we can cover both Jamo and we can cover Tyreek, or at least we've had plenty of practice against doing so, we're going to be in a good place when we get ready for the season. But also, the Dolphins have another wide receiver called Jalen Waddle. Now, Waddle hasn't had nearly as much success per se as Tyreek Hill has. But again, to overlook Waddle would not be a smart decision. Because again, if you take a look at the same time frame as I just did with Tyreek Hill, he's had 130 receptions to 187 targets. He's almost had 70% reception rate, almost 2,000 yards receiving, 13.5 an average a catch, 6 touchdowns, and while his touchdown percentage and his first down percentage are not necessarily as impressive as what Tyreek Hill's are, you have to respect what he's doing on the field. You can't just leave him alone. And while these are definitely the 3 biggest parts of the Dolphins' offense, that's not at all trying to say that their other pieces are less important because they've got a pretty damn good tight end in Jonnu Smith. They've also got a pretty good running back in Devon Achane. Hopefully I pronounced that last name correctly. If not, I do apologize. But the whole point is this. The Dolphins definitely have an offense that is going to push our defense. It's going to make our defense better. And then consider on top of that, the Dolphins have an offensive-minded head coach in Mike McDaniel who is going to be able and has proven that he can get great production from his offense. And with the offensive weapons that they currently have, again, it's going to push the Lions defense through practice outside of their own offense, which they go up against all the damn time, to get even better. So again, this is great news. Now, the second reason why this is great news, why this is a great opportunity that the Lions seized upon, is the opposite flip side of this coin is the Dolphins' defense will provide a strong test for the Lions' offense that's under new management, under a new play caller. Obviously, we know who I'm referring to, John Morton. Now, I will say this. The Dolphins haven't been known for having strong defenses for quite a long time. In fact, the last time they've really had a defense that really kind of was like, ooh, wow, or kind of captured everybody's imagination was when they had the no-name defense back in 1972. Quite a long time. I'm not saying they haven't had other good defenses since then, but that was like their creme de la creme. That was their masterpiece defense because, 1972, that was the year the Dolphins went undefeated and also won the Super Bowl. Only team that's ever done that. So that's definitely worthwhile of note of, mentioning there. But let's understand something here. 2024, I just mentioned, their offense was not too particularly well because, that's right, Tua was dealing with injuries. Well, think about this. Despite the fact that the offense wasn't doing very well, the defense on the other side surprisingly played at a very high level. Take a look at this. In 2024, the Dolphins had the 10th best defense in terms of points given up. They had the 4th best defense in terms of yards given up. They were tied 9th in yards per average per play, tied 5th in first downs total given up. They were ranked 9th in passing yards given up, and they were ranked 9th in rush yards given up. That's a top 10 defense. At least when you take a look at those stats. And think about it. The Dolphins defense, it took a pretty big leap in 2024. And it should be a good practice run, a good practice dummy, if you will, for our offense as John Morton gets the offense and the unit itself used to him, how he calls plays, and fully assimilated to how he runs things. So again, this Dolphins defense is going to help the Lions offense out because you have to think about this as well. The Lions offense right now, even though it's pretty much running things as it's normally been running them for the last couple of years, John Morton's different than Ben Johnson. He's going to run things differently. And then plus on top of that, the offense, it has to get back in rhythm with itself. It has to develop that chemistry again. Because everyone's like, they already have chemistry. Yeah, that's true. But let's also understand something here. There's been a pretty long gap in time between when the season ended in 2024 to when they're starting things back up again. They're going to need to get their rhythm back. So having to do that against a defense like what the Dolphins have, that's pretty damn good. And then think about this as well. Depending upon whether or not the Dolphins are still going to have Jalen Ramsey by the time this actually happens, or if Jalen Ramsey's even going to be participating, that is going to also be something else because, Goff and Jalen Ramsey are they're former teammates. So that'll be something interesting to pay attention to. Just me noticing that. But then that brings us to the third reason. The third reason here as to why I think the Lions made a brilliant decision by seizing upon this opportunity is that they're going to be getting an AFC team perspective to prepare against. What exactly do I mean by this? Well, let's just call it for what it is here. The Lions are an NFC team. They don't often play against opposing conference teams. I'm not saying that they don't ever, but they typically play within their own conference. Very seldom will they drop out and go into the AFC and face against those types of teams. But they're getting the opportunity, they seized the opportunity to work against an AFC team, but not just any AFC team. It's a pretty damn good AFC team that will help push and develop both sides of the ball, as I just pointed out, to get them even better, which will help prepare the team for their Super Bowl push this year, which, hey, as we all know, when you get to the Super Bowl, you're going to have to play the best team that's in the AFC. That's how it works. And think about this. The Lions have 5 AFC teams they have to play against this year in the regular season. They have to play against the Bengals, the Browns, the Steelers, the Ravens, and the Chiefs. That's a pretty, damn good assemblage of, teams they've got to play against. And, by the way, 3 of those teams last year made the playoffs. One of them made it to the Super Bowl, and 2 of those teams, the Bengals and the Chiefs, have been to Super Bowls over the last couple of years. So, probably would be a pretty good idea, so that way, hey, you know what, when we get ready to play these teams, we have a better idea of what we're getting ourselves into here, since, that's right, we don't normally play AFC teams all that often. And while the Dolphins didn't make the playoffs in 2024, they did, however, make the playoffs in 2023 and 2022. This, again, is a vastly different situation in team dynamic than if the Lions would have stuck with the Giants for a third year running. Because the Giants ain't doing anything. They haven't done anything in a long time. And you have to think about this. The Dolphins have and regularly go against some of the best teams in the AFC. I'm not saying they regularly beat them, but if you think about it, over the last couple of years, they have beaten teams like the Ravens, like the Bills, like the Chargers. These are all teams that are going to be vying for competition for the Super Bowl. The only team that's from the AFC that they still haven't found a way to beat over the last couple of years is the Chiefs, which, oh, by the way, we've already figured out how to do that. And Jared Goff is 2-0 against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, so I feel pretty confident in at least that regard. But my point of the matter is this. Having the ability to go up against an AFC team like the Dolphins that has a very explosive, very dynamic, very unique offense in its own right, with plenty of playmakers, a team that last year fielded a top 10 defense, and a team that goes up against some of the best competition that's in the AFC, of which we are going to be playing against some of that top competition, like the Ravens, the Bengals, the Chiefs, teams like that. That right there is something that I think is a brilliant decision, a brilliant, opportunity that the Lions seized upon, because it's going to make them better. A hell of a lot better than if they would have done this with the freaking Giants for a third year in a row. So to me, this is a great move by the Lions. And it's not one that a lot of people are going to notice. It's not one that a lot of people are going to talk about in the way that I'm talking about it. But think about it. It truly has the opportunity to really set the Lions up for a Super Bowl run, because it's like, hey, what you do in the offseason, in the months of June, July, August, all of that stuff, that's going to pay huge dividends when you start getting into the later months of the regular season. November, December, January. Because if you lay the groundwork right now, you're going to set yourself up for success in the succeeding months that then come thereafter. This is what exactly this move tells me. But we'll see what you guys say. We'll see what you guys think. You guys always do. All I ask is you keep it respectful. Having said that, I'm going to end this episode and say thank you all for watching in another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw, by all means, I highly encourage you all to watch the next episode. Also encourage you all to do one of these three things: like, comment, and subscribe. I also want to encourage you all, please, to, hey, you know what? If you subscribed in the past and you forgot to do so at the time, make sure you hit that bell notification icon so that way you guys never miss any more content that I push out. Also want to encourage y'all, please, to share the content with your Lions friends and family members. I'm going to ask you to share here on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. Share it wherever and everywhere you possibly can. The more we can do so, the greater the channel can grow and spread. We're almost at 10,000 subscribers, folks. Hard to believe we're almost there, but you guys have been such an amazing crowd. Absolutely love every single one of y'all. And with that, I hope you all enjoyed the content. Hope I was able to give you a new perspective. That's what I try to do with every single episode that I make. Hopefully it was also entertaining for you. I also hope that everybody has something in their life that makes them happy, makes them smile. God bless, my friends. And until the next time we meet, I'll see you all in the next episode.